Welcome to Sunny Sheets. I'm Carson, and today I'm doing the first book review of the channel. I decided not to retroactively review or talk about any books. I mean, I have a decent amount of books that I've read since before starting the channel, but I figured I would just start with what I read most recently, and when I finish a book from now on, I'll probably just make a video where I can talk about it. I really want everyone to be able to watch at least some amount of the video. So the first half will be spoiler free. I'll talk about the general summary of the book and like the general plot, who I think the book would be for, and I'll give my rating. And then in the second half of the video, I'll go into spoilers and more plot specific stuff and themes and such. So what are we reviewing? This is Out of the Drowning Deep by A.C. Wise. But the story takes place on the Bastion, and the Bastion is this floating, decrepit old monastery slash library slash archive place, kind of floating in the corner of the galaxy that this story takes place in. And it is ran, in the Bastion's ran by this automaton robot called Scribe 4. And his duty and his programming is just to write down and physically archive the prayers that the angels receive. And so under his watch, on the Bastion, there's a conclave held to elect a new pope, and then the pope is murdered. This isn't a spoiler. I mean, this is the second sentence on the sleeve jacket, on the dust, whatever they call these things, on the dust cover. And so Scribe 4, under his watch, he wants to run an investigation and find out who murdered the pope. But then the main antagonistic force comes into play, the Drowning Sisters, they're described as cosmic horror nuns. They're just a real creepy, suspicious cult. And they step into the Bastion and take over the investigation. They say, hey, we are setting a curfew. No one is to disrupt our investigation. If you do, you will be drowned. You'll be taken care of. Scribe 4 doesn't want this. He wants to run the investigation, and he doesn't trust the Drowning Sisters having good intentions and having the truth in mind, that they sort of have ulterior motives. So he sends out a signal out in space just to ask for help. Like, please, someone come. The Drowning Sisters have taken over the Bastion. I need help. And so a former drug addict, private investigator named Quinn gets the message and decides that he'll go to the Bastion and help out. And the Scribe 4 had also sent out a prayer, and a literal angel heard him. And so a literal angel materializes, sort of a younger and more immature angel who sort of thinks that solving a murder mystery would be kind of fun. So that's essentially the plot in a nutshell. There's not too much else I can say without spoiling, because it's a very thin book. It is less than 170 pages, so it's a short book. So who's this book for? If you are someone that is really into creepy atmosphere, I hesitate to call this horror. It's not really meant to make you feel truly scared and disgusted or anything, but it's creepy. It's super weird and strange and unnerving. Like, just to give you the vibe, like this book, the first sentence to start out the book is, the sky above the Bastion deepened into the green of an old bruise. I don't know, it's like a simple description, but I don't know, I think that sets up the vibe really well. That dark, gross, brown-green sky is perfect. There's another one, there's another quote I have. There's a character, and her fingers knotted in a complex pattern that drained the blood from them. A nervous gesture or an arcane prayer. There's just a lot of descriptive writing that really sets the mood very well, like a 10 out of 10 atmosphere. I loved it. I have some minor cons that I can't say in the spoiler-free section. They're pretty specific to the plot of what happened. I think the book tried a little bit too much with how short it is, but I don't think it's really a detriment to the reading experience at all, because books like this that are labeled cosmic horror and that are just real strange and very different kind of writing, like just mysterious type shit, I read primarily for the atmosphere and the immersion of the creepiness. And I think this book does that perfectly. I think it's just some of the plot it tried to squeeze a little too much in. I think if this book was made to be 250 pages or maybe 300 and those things were fleshed out, and those maybe the specific gripes I have with the plot were fleshed out or like sort of fixed a little bit, it'd be a perfect book. And so yeah, that's basically all I have to say. So this book I recommend this book to someone who's looking for a real quick, short palate cleanser, something real different, something strange, and is into cosmic horror and strange entities and stuff like that. Of course, it's not a perfect book. There are like some specific gripes I have that I'll talk about in the spoiler section, but overall, I would definitely recommend checking this out. It was really, really fun read, really strange, really different. I very much enjoyed it. And I think my overall rating, I gave it 8.5 out of 10, which I think is a solid rating, 8.5 out of 10. So yeah, I kind of mentioned overall the plot, and I alluded to like a con, like something I didn't like about the plot. And I liked the drowning sisters at the start. I loved the setup. They pull up, they're real creepy. They pull up in like a half mechanical, half organic anglerfish ship. It was pretty unclear, but like they come from the water in a weird anglerfish ship. And I think they even described the nuns themselves being somewhat transformed because they live underwater. Sort of how it mentions that their jaws don't line up because their jaws kind of jut out a little bit and they're weird looking. So they pull up with this creepy atmosphere already, real mysterious, and in the way that they can just command everyone and everyone's fearful of them. And then there's a person that's running away, and being drowned is really them summoning a column of water and just smashing and killing this person. So super creepy, and they're actually powerful, and that's what the threat of them is they actually have power. They can kill people with seemingly magical feats like that. But the main cast has a literal angel. They have an angel that is omnipotent, that transforms themselves at will to become an all-powerful being, including their god, the drowned god. And the angel can teleport the main cast. So the danger and the threat of the drowned sisters is pretty lessened because the main character has an angel with them. So that was one con I didn't like. I think the setup for the drowned sisters was really strong, and then you find out, well, we have an angel that can teleport us anywhere in space-time and is all-powerful. So the threat of the drowned sisters was heavily lessened. So that was a little bit of a hurt to the story a little bit. And there's a lot of character work going on. I think Scribe 4 was done fine. Scribe 4 is a robot that, you know, it's heavily implied and discussed how even though he's a old robot, a pretty inefficient, simple robot with the comparison to the AI that this world has at that current time, Scribe 4 is pretty outdated. But despite that, despite being a robot, he's actually essentially gaining his own sentience and his own desire to be human. He talks about how he likes to sit and wonder at not knowing something, and he likes to think about something instead of just, you know, linking up to the data frame or whatnot and getting the answer in nanoseconds. Because he's a robot, he can do that. But he kind of mentions how he likes to sit and wonder. He likes mystery, and that's what makes him so excited about this murder. Not excited that the Pope was murdered, but a purpose, something complex for him to sink his teeth into. And so it was really interesting just kind of hearing the perspective of a robot talk about, he's like, oh, frustrated. He's like, if I had the programming to sigh, if I had lungs to sigh at these people, I totally would. And in his writing and his prayer archiving, he chooses to use ink and quill purposefully instead of digital paper and digital pens, I think for the novelty and the feel of the ink. Like, he's a very humanized robot. And I think there was enough of that in this short novella. Now, Quinn, I think the addition of Quinn and his sister may have been a little much for the story. I feel like the sister was added and a POV was given to her that really didn't add much. I don't think added much to the story. I mean, you've got Quinn and Lena who were subjected to their father locking them in a room with a corpse, trying to make his kids rise up a new god that his dad wanted to create. And I understand what the author was trying to do, where it's like you've got a split personality where Quinn has a sort of a addictive relationship with this angel called Murmuradian, who is feeding off of his trauma and basically like wiping his memories. And then you've got Lena, who chooses to keep those memories, and so she feels isolated, where her brother is having his memories and trauma taken away so he didn't have to feel the hurt. But she's sitting in the hurt and she's keeping it. But I don't really feel like it added much to the story that much. I mean, she comes into play and basically pulls up to Murmuradian and wants to hate him for taking away her brother's memories. But she sort of just starts, I don't know. I'm not really certain why her POV was added. It didn't really add that much to the story. Now, the memories were super important to like, that actual story is important because it's sort of the link that Quinn makes to a play, to a hint that's in the detective case that basically gives him the like, oh, that's how the Pope was murdered. So the actual trauma does have a plot point to play, but adding in the sister, I feel like it was sort of wasted POV. We didn't really need the chapters with Lena too much, in my opinion. I don't think it added much. And kind of going off of that trauma story about their dad trying to raise their own god by abusing their kids and murdering somebody, and then equally the drowning sisters pulling up to the bastion, and they're not really interested in the truth of who murdered the Pope. They just want an excuse to drown whoever they can at the bastion, to have sacrifices to make their own drowned god. So essentially the whole theme that I picked up from this book is the arrogance of man, the arrogance of humans to not know their place in the world, arrogance of humans to try to make their own gods. I mean, in our own real life world, we already see the perversion of religion a little bit to control. So this story, I think, takes it a step further because, I mean, in our human world, we just simply have faith that in religion. We sort of believe. But in this world, angels have literally made themselves apparent and materialized. It's not a faith thing at this point in this world. I mean, it's known there are angels. So the arrogance of man to create their own gods and their own deities, and the arrogance of man is even heightened because gods actually do exist. It's not a point of faith. They do exist in this world. And so I think the theme that A.C. Wise might have been trying to explore is a sort of more heightened version of man's arrogance, where they're actually trying to create their own gods and they're trying to shape gods in their own way and showing how morally depriving that is to these people. So that's sort of the theme that I got. In my reading, I'm trying to be more analytical. I'm trying to think a little more thoughtfully about what I'm reading and what the author may have been trying to say. So that's my take. I want to read a quote or a book excerpt from my journal. They are 100% spoiler-free, no context required, just either pretty, writing that stuck out to me, or emotional, or something of note made me write it down. So I should start with this video, and I'm just going to kind of start from the top of my journal and go down. And by the way, I'm going to talk about my journals more in depth in my reading methodology. That's a whole separate video I want to make because I try to be really intentional with my reading as a hobby. So I'll talk about this journal and my other journal more in a different video. But just to start off the tradition and the routine of video outros being book excerpts, a gentle breeze sifting ash into swirling whirls like dark flaked snow. If you stuck it all the way to the end of the video, thanks for hanging with me. Thanks for hanging out at Sunny Sheets. hopefully there was something in the video that you enjoyed or got out of it, or maybe you got a new book recommendation. I don't know, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you here next time.